Going for here, man. Maximum immersion. Hello, everybody, all my sweet friends and romantic enemies. How are you guys doing today? I'm Joe W. You can tell it's me because under my name it says it's me. And this is TJ, who carries around his driver's license in his hand so that he can look down and make sure that he is who he says he is. That's probably from a series of brain injuries from on both sides, I think.
Right.
So, what I wanted to talk about, and I wanted to bring TJ in on this, is because I feel like writers on the whole, and I think narrators, anyone that's involved in a big long term project, are super obviously susceptible to things like burnout. And and one of
Mhm.
the like things that I think that we learned in the military that's really good, and I think that's one reason why so many people that are prior military tend to be successful, or at least prolific writers, is because there's a discipline and perseverance mindset that you are broken down and taught from the
Mhm.
very beginning. And so there's I was joking around with my son who's 11. There's this thing called Camp Spartan, and basically they crush your kid's spirit for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, when I'm reading it, everything I'm reading, I'm like, they're freezing cold and hungry for 15 hours. That sounds awesome. And like,
Right.
you think I'm being funny about that, but I'm not. Whenever I see something like that, I just think montage. I think character growth, and I that works with humans. Um,
Yeah.
but the idea that I wanted to really touch on here is this idea of perseverance.
Mhm.
And perseverance, when looked up on the Googler, it's a series of tubes. It says persevere. Third person present perseveres. That's all boring. Okay. Continue in a course of action, even in the face of difficulty or with little or no prospect of success.
Yep.
And I think that the number one quote to sort of emphasize that concept of perseverance comes from somebody that you don't think of as somebody who sticks it through no matter what, but Han Solo. I think he was speaking to Gandalf in Lord of the Star Wars,
Yep.
um, and he said, "Never tell me the odds."
Yeah, they're in
Now,
an argument with Captain Kirk, I think.
yeah, I think that's what was happening because Spock
Hmm.
had hit one of the hobbits with his, James Bond neck pinch attack.
Yeah.
I wonder how many people we've just triggered. I'm triggering myself. Like I'm not enjoying this conversation anymore. Hey, Sharon, how's it going? So, so I
Yeah,
wanted
her
to talk
amazing
about
KT. Hannah. Love you.
Katie. Hey, how's it going? All right, we got peoples with cool nose piercings. And I wanted to. I like this concept of never tell me the odds, but not for the same reason
Mm.
that I think that Han Solo does it because he doesn't want to face that negativity that's like a part of him. But for us, it's one of those things that I don't want to know the odds because I don't care. That doesn't sound right. It's not that I don't care. It's that that's not going to affect whether or not I'm going to continue. Usually. Um, but perseverance itself is a mix of mindset and progress and resilience. And a lot of times we lose sight of what progress is because we're, especially as Americans or people who live in North America and just really civilization as a whole right now is very keen on immediate results. That's
Yes.
why, despite the fact that I have at one point in my life lost over 60 pounds in 3 months with zero cardio. Friends and family will still look at like, hey, do you think these pills? Do you think that like this crazy fad diet or this whatever? And I'm
Mm.
like, it's literally body is math. It's just, you know, outtake versus intake. And it's different for everybody, and everybody's body is different. But unfortunately, we like the shortcut.
Hmm.
We like to see that, and that's there's always people that sneak in the military and they never quite learn that, and they focus on the shortcut. Yeah, I've
Yep.
known people that would spend 20 minutes trying to get out of doing a like 7 minute job, and we all know people like that. And
Right.
I've even been that. I'm sure at some points, but the thing is that really the difference between like that progress is knowing what your goals are, is knowing like where your end point is.
Mhm.
And one of the big things that can affect that mindset and that outlook is knowing the difference between discipline and motivation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to touch on PTSD. I'm so happy you're here. Stick around because I've got a really unique perspective. I don't want to say unique, but I guess I come from a medical sideline of combat as opposed to just being a guy with a gun. And I think that it gave me a sort of added lens to look at PTSD and combat. And when I say combat, I don't necessarily mean just people shooting at you. I mean people that have been through highly stressful situations. Be it combat, domestic violence, surviving an assault of some kind. I don't know what the rules are here, so I won't just say it straight out. But you know what I mean. Just being able to survive um, these traumatic experiences, the loss of a loved one, losing your parents early. All these things can change the way you view the world.
Yep.
So the difference between motivation and discipline is that motivation is what makes everybody join the gym at
Yep.
or buy or the best one is buying like celery or buying spinach. Like that's in that moment you're like I'm about to I'm about to change my life right now. Like I'm not, and then you go by the cereal aisle. You're like I am going to need some more Frosted Flakes though, just in case because I
Well, I
don't
think
always have
like
time to eat.
I love it when it's on day one, you're at Walmart, you get the huge container of baby spinach, which you think is only going to last you like 2, 3 days. It actually
Yeah.
lasts you like 4 months because it's just
Hmm.
compacted in there. And they're like super excited. Oh, yeah, I got some spinach. I'm going to start doing this. And then
Yeah.
it's like, I haven't heard from you on day 4. How's that spinach tasting on day 4 and 5? Ugh.
Yeah, but celery is delicious. Here, let me see if I can fix my
Now,
light
see,
here.
I am
So,
a huge celery is my enemy. I can't stand celery, so I am not a
really,
celery. I'm a celery salt fan, but I'm not a
yeah,
celery fan.
I liked the what do they call the ants where you put raisins and peanut butter on them. What
Oh
do they call
yeah,
that? Like, even then, it's still celery. You're just eating grass.
yeah.
I don't know why my hat keeps disappearing, and that's okay. I'll be a conehead. So, but what I have here is motivation is a fickle mistress. It's picking a lump sum number to get paid, somewhere between $350 and $5,000 to get paid with no chance of future income. And green veggies and discipline is an investment that pays out like a 401k. It requires a constant
Mm,
attention. It requires you making a decision. The best days to do things are the days you don't want to,
yeah,
and so you might not see as much up front, but you can retire on it. And what I mean by that is it can literally change the way you do everything. Um, it does help you think long term. It helps you not make these snap decisions. So knowing all that and the difference between motivation and discipline, why does that matter? Well, this is when I want to touch on the PTSD side of things. So I was a corpsman with 2-1 Marines. I went over to Fallujah, Iraq in 2004. I got a little banged up. I'm missing my left leg above the knee, and my right ankle is completely fused, which means it does not move. My right knee is reconstructed. My body's kind of a mess, and having been through all that stuff, and then on Labor Day of 2004, I lost most of my second squad to a suicide bomber. I've been through
mhm,
a lot. I've been through a lot. I come home. I've got a 3-month-old daughter that I'd never even met before, and so I had to learn how to be somebody who was a kid that went to war, and I mean, not to sound dramatic, but grew up, became a man, and now I'm also a dad, and also I've lost the thing that I didn't realize I had put pride in, and that was my
mm,
athleticism, um, and that was also a source of my identity, and when you lose your sense of self like that, and you don't see an avenue towards anything else, it's really easy to sink into your demons, easy to sink into your depressions. I had a couple of things going for me. One was a strong marriage, a daughter, um, no drinking problems, and I got off all my pills very quickly because I didn't like being on them. I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember the first year or so of my daughter's life because of the medications I was on, and I would rather deal with pain and remember everything than that. Um, but as a combat medic, as a corpsman, and my job was to take care of Marines, whether they get hurt eating things or playing with bugs or shooting things or throwing knives at one another. My job was to take care of them and keep them healthy. Um, as a corpsman, one of the first things that you learn about when you start working with Marines is the concept of triage. And so, what triage means is that you depending on the situation, have to choose between who you save and who you help. And those situations change based off of what is happening and how many people are shooting at you. There are times when, thankfully, I was never put in this position personally, where you have to choose between someone who has a very easy to fix femoral bleed that will kill them in 40 seconds versus getting a gun in somebody's hand, and being able to shoot back, because having another gun could be what saves everybody.
Right.
And luckily, I was not put into that position personally, but it is a very real thing that was always in the back of my mind. And there were times when I thought that decision was coming. But being a corpsman gave me a unique perspective on perseverance and on PTSD, because when you add in the concept of triage, it made me realize what PTSD does to you. And it makes you lose your ability to assess threats properly. Because when every spoon is a gun, you don't see guns anymore. And so for me, I was able to sort of find a something to hold on to, and to realize that PTSD in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's actually a survival tool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not me in denial speaking about PTSD and having this, horrible, debilitating. I'm going to turn this blur off. It's distracting even me. Ooh, touch up my appearance. More Ovaltine, please. I don't even know how to do it. Settings. Oh, there we go. Virtual background. That was it. All right, there we go. So, but I realized that what was happening was that instead of being really good at assessing threats and being really good at knowing where your exits are and when you see dangerous people, and they're not always walking around all big and tough and 6'3". Sometimes it's just a feeling you get off of somebody. But being able to assess those threats. Oh, there we go. 8 years ago, and he had the best bedside manner. I had a mechanic for a surgeon, and he was the best. He's probably exactly what I needed, but he should have been a mechanic. But for me, I realized that when you're in the midst of PTSD, when you're in the midst of all those things, you lose the ability to triage your threats. You lose the ability to see
Mm-hmm.
what your weaknesses are. And so I want to tie that back in to say that, one, I'm doing great. I've surrounded myself with amazing people. I connect with people on a level that I don't think I was capable of doing before. And sometimes you meet people. I met, TJ at Dragon Con, and it just immediately knew we were going to be good friends. It wasn't even like a, hey, let me get your number. It was like a foregone conclusion that we were going to interact with each other in the future. And a couple other people, and I think that is because I know myself well. I know who I like to be around. I like to be around solid people who do what they say and say what they're going to do.
Yep.
And I like people that put pressure on me. I like people like TJ that's going to message me and say, hey, bub, I hadn't heard from you in 3 days. What are you working on? And I have to go, I have not been doing my job, but thank you for the reminder. So why does all this tie into being a writer and a narrator? And I love meeting you too, Katie. Oh, it's because much of what burnout and creative blocks come from are directly combated by perseverance. So things like pressure, deadlines, whether they're like inside deadlines, like, hey, I want to get this done by the end of the year because I got a new project I want to work on, or outside sources like, hey, we need book 3 in your series. You've got a time window of when this is going to help you succeed and push your first book or your second book, and you have a window that you have to hit here. Or whether it's financial, if you're if that's what it is for you. Oh, Jez, you're beautiful. Another thing other than pressure is the why factor. Like, why are you writing? Why are you narrating? Why are you on this project, this big project, whatever it is?
Mhm.
Is it survival? If so, we're right back to pressure. But being able to break through your goals down and keep that mission in sight is discipline and the grit or moxie to see it through. So what perseverance does is it allows you to take these goals, these big goals that you have. And I got trapped on this myself, which is why I know myself exactly. Back to editing is why I know myself now well enough to be able to say, hey, when I look at this 200,000 word book that I want to write, that seems impossible. When I spend all day
Right.
writing and I'm like, I did 1% and it's
Yeah.
not even edited, it's
Or
a
half a percent.
trashy or half a percent.
Yeah.
It's like, what in what, like, why? And so, for me, being able to break that down, one of the things that Brian Norton actually said is a good thing to do is to write, have your master up, but write your chapters in a separate file
Mhm.
so that you can have that mental check off.
Yep.
That's the same as when you're in the military, they tell you you wake up and you make your rack first thing. It's a
Yep.
mindset thing of waking up and succeeding at something simple. When you're training dogs and they're having trouble understanding something, you always circle back around to the easy task to build their confidence back up. And we need that. We
Mhm.
need that.
Yep.
So, your why factor is so important. And then work life balance. Sometimes we work against ourselves. We had a conversation right before we started here about, sometimes there's, you're running yourself ragged, but it's good to know how to push through. But more importantly, it's more important to know when, and that ties in, I think, to the umbrella of this entire issue, which is lack of control.
Yeah.
And I don't mean lack of control as in like I don't know what I'm doing with myself. It's just in the military, we call that fire for effect. When you're just trying to cause chaos, you just put rounds down range.
Yep.
Um, I mean, you're not going to hit your target, but you are going to cause chaos. And sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you have to sit down and just, do a sprint, write 500 words and like misspell your main character's name. And it doesn't matter because the goal is you need to do something. And you're not always like freewheeling and pantsing an entire series, but when you're not triaging your problems, you're not mission focused, you're a burden to yourself and your mission. And that's why I think it's so good to have people that check on you and have people that rely on you, because a little bit of that pressure is good as long as you manage the pressure like a tool. Same thing with PTSD. It can help you triage your threats. It can help you know the things around you and recognize dangerous people. But also it can overwhelm you and make you see every vehicle and every shoe on the side of the road is a bomb, and it
Right.
makes it very difficult to drive and to be realistic. And it makes it very difficult to live.
Yeah.
Um, and you're expending a lot of energy, ammo or mana in the direction of a raid boss, which is your project, and hoping to hit a weak spot. But it's better to do some damage when you can and back up and heal when you need to than to need a res, to need somebody to rescue, to need somebody to come in and intervene with you.
Mhm.
Because these projects are not going to kill you, unless I guess it depends on the project. But you can do damage to these. So they got a lot of hit points, but you can do damage. But these projects only stop and they only beat you when you give up. When you close
Yep.
that file for the last time, when you say, I'll work on this later, but you know that inside yourself, you're not going to touch that for a while. Everybody, no
Mhm.
matter how successful they are, has a project that broke them. Whether it was life that did it or the project itself, or feeling like they weren't ready for that project. When I first started interacting with authors in general, I mean, and I love Shadow Alley Press, but I was, the Viridian Gate Online books, and I had a great idea for a story, and I was in over my head.
Mhm.
It was, they had a lot of backstory lined up, and I was not prepared to go through and do all that. And am I capable of it? Absolutely. Did I let that become my excuse to not write a story that even to this day, I don't think anybody's really touched on? Is it still a feasible idea? Who
Mhm.
knows? But I did shut that file down and haven't looked at it in 2 years. And that's frustrating to me. So,
But at the same time, like you kind of talked about, there's times when you sign up for the marathon
mhm,
and you haven't even ran a 5K yet, right?
yeah.
And so I think that's a little bit part of it, like you said, where, hey, how do I grow my confidence? How do I grow in the ability? And it's just small victories over time to build yourself up to the pacing you need to be.
You know, I agree 100%. And the problem is half a book written, wrote yourself into a corner and put it aside. You know, it's funny. I've done that before with music in a way. You know, you crescendo too early. I haven't yet done that with. Yeah, oh, is it? I. You're welcome, and I'm sorry. So, but for me, sometimes working from a different point. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like you know, sometimes you got to stop putting in the floors and put some walls up to give yourself a break. But you know, the things that you can do to really make a difference and like mitigate these things in your life outside of the mindset of discipline and trying to build it up by building good habits and setting yourself on a schedule and having people follow up with you to say, hey, where are you at, what are you doing, is don't set yourself up for failure. Like when you buy those frosted flakes at the you know, at the grocery store, they're going to get et way faster than the you know, than the spinach. And so you know, you don't set yourself up for failure. Don't put yourself so far behind in work that you know you're not going to be able to focus on writing. Don't neglect your family, you know, time with your family, because these are things that are going to make it hard for you to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Eat, sleep, uh, force planned recreation. TJ's putting up pictures of hiking and things like that. You know, he's
Those are
probably
all
doing it.
old pictures. I'm just telling you right now,
We got
they're
to get
all
out
old.
there. We got to get back there, man.
Dude, trust
But
me, give me about a month and you're going to
yeah,
see some new photography landscape photos coming up on the page.
good. You got to
Yeah.
touch grass, man. You got to get out there and touch
Mm-hmm.
grass every once in a while. And other things that you can do that can break you on a project is make redundant backups. It's better to have 6 versions of your story saved than it is to lose a story. We
Mm-hmm.
all know somebody who's lost half a book, a quarter of a book, a couple of chapters, and it was enough to push them over the edge. And perspective gives you clarity 100%.
Can I touch on Kyle, what he's saying with
Yeah,
perspective?
absolutely, man.
So two things here. One is when we talked about the lack of control. I
Yeah,
had gotten to this point in writing where I had the Dying Breed series, I had Bloodbath, 2 different series. And then it was, what
so
about
fun.
Project
Yeah,
Kepler? What about Project High Definition? What about Project Illustration of this? What about this project? And it was almost like, hey, I'm just going to get the shotgun round of buckshot and I'm just going to shoot it out there and try to hit something.
yeah,
The reality is I did not I you don't have control over if, when, and where your readers are going to show up.
yeah,
And so I was like, I really had to stop myself from going down this rabbit hole of all these ideas and all these things. And I was like, what can I control right now? I've got the Dying Breed series. I've got Call Sign Bloodbath. These are my only 2 series that I'm going to focus on. And I'm going to get them done because I don't want to have unfinished work.
yeah,
And just because I may not have the readers I would like to have, eventually I believe they are going to show up because I have the perseverance.
yeah.
So I'm going to persevere and I'm going to finish these projects before I move on. And what Kyle brought up with perspective, one of my favorite stories of all time is The Frozen Chosen, where the Marines are in North Korea fighting and they come in and they say, hey, we are now completely surrounded by the enemy. Good. And the commanding officer, looks at everyone. Good. That's great. And of course, his staff is like, "What do you mean it's great? We are completely surrounded. We have no support or relief from our main force." And he's like, "Yeah, they can't get away from us now." And they fought their way out of the chosen
Yeah,
reservoir against all odds. And it's one of the most horrific things that the military had to fight through,
yeah.
but it's also considered one of the greatest military victories. And it was all about the perspective. When everyone else around that person thought there's no way out of this, there's one person who said, nope, there is a way, and it's going to be through all these odds against us.
And you know, it's funny because
So if you're in a corner,
yeah,
you just can't see the perspective yet. And don't give up faith on that of like, oh my God, I don't know where to go, because you probably have 10 different avenues to go. You're just
yeah.
not able to see it yet.
I mean, in a weird sort of way, me getting blown up is one of the best things that ever happened to me. Now, let me clarify that me getting blown up was not a good thing, but good things came of it. because of I hate giving myself credit. I want to say I was lucky. I did, but realistically, I did make good decisions. I did push through when I needed to, and it was much easier with having the tools that I had at my disposal. But I was as just as you mentioned a moment ago, I was in a target rich environment. I had so many problems that I could just work on anything, and it was going to help me in the long run.
Mhm.
And so now I do little things. The story that I'm writing, that I think 44,000 words into, I've got little hints of my Marines in there. I've got, Brian's got one of my Marines in his book. And these are little things that I'm going to do to make sure that I acknowledge these people, because as long as you're still talking about these people that are gone, um, they're never really gone. They still live
Yep.
on. So, I give homage to those guys when I can, and I absolutely want to make sure that Semper Fi, brother, and I absolutely want to make sure that that carries through into my life, because despite me only being in the military, 3 years and 9 months, man, what an impact that had on my life. And I don't mean that as a bomb joke. I mean, it changed my mannerisms. It changed my ability to self-correct, which I think is one of the most attractive traits in a human being, is to be able to be angry and then catch yourself before you go too far, before you say something dumb, you know, I'm still going to say something dumb, but I'll know I said it when I said it. But, I think it was Dakota that said this the other day, but it's mind, body, spirit. There are no dead stats. You can't, there are no dump stats. You really have to balance yourself between those things. Good MCs, that's the most frustrating. You're 3 chapters into an MC, not checking his stats, and he's going into all these fights, and you're just getting frustrated because he's getting dumpstered. But a good MC doesn't go into fights without checking your notification for debuffs or level ups. You gotta look for these things.
I
So
think the biggest thing is the support system to
yeah.
surround yourself with. But one of the other biggest things is one of my favorite military movies, which is necessarily not a military movie, but 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi.
Oh yeah.
And as it was going on, and when they say no one is coming, it's up to us. And to me, that was one of those things that I've always really reflected on, is no one is coming to save this story and write it for me. No one is going to come
Mars.
and do this thing.
Yeah.
I have to do this on my own, and I've got to see it through. And
Yeah.
if this is the commitment I made to myself first and then others later, do this for yourself.
So JD says self-control is that much more apparent in society moving towards instant gratification, and it is. And to be honest with you, what scares me the most about that is people who do that are often seen as toxic in some way. People that can say no to the instant gratification, people that don't drink, people that, not that I'm saying that drinking itself is bad, but I mean to not do it in my case because I know that there's a gamble there. Why would I play that game with all the things that I've been through of adding in something
Mm,
like that to my life? And it's not, there is no upside to that. I don't need the social side of things because I'm already a goofball and I love people anyway. So I don't, there's no upside to me doing these things. And so surrounding yourself with the right people, and that includes these author groups and these discords and stuff like that, man, I cannot believe how positive it is. As long as you're actually there to work, and as long as you're able
yep.
to be focused when you need to be focused, we can get on here and goof around and joke around. This is probably the most serious anyone here has ever seen me, because this is something that I did want to get across. But I'm not serious unless I have to be. And but I know how to turn it on, and my immaturity is a choice.
Right.
So it's the difference between knowing when to push yourself and how to push yourself. And that all comes from discipline and knowing your weaknesses. So
Yeah.
it looks
And
like
so
we're
it's not on, no one's coming to save you. It's up to you to do this. But that
yeah.
support network of like, hey, are you still good? Are you still pressing? Do I need to take a break? Okay, good. Take a break. but tell me when you're gonna, tell me what happens in the next scene. I'm gonna
Yeah.
hold you accountable to keep going and putting through that. So yeah, that support system to help you is so crucial.
Well, because you're not being crucified. Like, oh my God, what
Right.
the heck's wrong? You didn't write anything today? It's more what can I do to help? And
Yeah.
that, oh my God, one of the best bosses I ever had that I ever worked for was that type of person. It didn't matter how bad things went. She trusted you or she wouldn't have hired you. And so she went directly into what can I do to help?
Hmm.
Not what did you do? There was no accusation. It was what can I do to help? And this group of people, all these writers and narrators and people that have jumped out of the woodworks. And when people are offering their time, when people like Brian and Steve Campbell are jumping in to say something like, "Hey, what can I do to help you?" Like, holy cow, I got to do something now. Because these
Yeah.
people that are prolific and are doing things are have invested in me, so now I feel like I need to do something as well, and I like that. That's good for me.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you came on and shared all that with us.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I know we're cutting a little tight here, but obviously, if anybody ever has any questions, you can reach out to me or TJ on Facebook. TJ, why don't you plug your story that you're working on Royal Road right now?
Dude, man. Call sign Bloodbath. It's been a lot of fun.
It's freaking
It's
fun, dude. It's fun.
Yeah, it's been an awesome journey. Uh,
Yeah,
Book two, Enmity, is dropping on the Patreon right now. It's going to come out on Royal Road, and man, the intensity is just ramped up even more. And
yeah.
it's a super serious topic to me. Where at the very intro of the book, you are given real world stats and data on what's going on with human trafficking in the world, and the resources you can utilize to reach out if you see human trafficking going on, if you think you have found someone who's a victim of human trafficking. So yeah, we went balls to the wall on that series, and I'm super excited to start writing book 3, because we are going to start dealing with a lot of PTSD stuff. We are going to just really you know build the world, and it's going to be a great adventure. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's on Royal Road for free.
And I just want to say I love you, TJ. I love you, man, because you're so concerned, with looking at me to narrate that the subject matter. You've been very upfront with me about the subject matter, and that it's something that is serious and that you're taking very seriously. And you've reached out to me on multiple occasions to give me a heads up about what's coming, and to make sure that I'm good with everything. And man, I love that you're writing something that has the intensity that some people are afraid to do, and along with a subject matter that is something that a lot of people don't touch. So
Yeah.
absolutely, if you want to read something different that is really going to push your idea of what action is in a book, check this out. It's really good. It's really good.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Is your name your handle on that series? I'll let you answer that.
Yep, Geneva already got it for us.
Oh,
So
okay.
the link is right down there, you guys, if you
Oh,
want to
yeah.
check it out on Royal Road. So, but yeah.
That's my shark dance. Is it?
So
I
yeah,
guess it
so
would be
so the
more like.
biggest reason too that Jodan is bringing this up also is, he does have early access to book 2 for him to check out. Our goal is that this guy is going to hopefully be my narrator for the audiobook. I'm trying to get him roped in and see if we can make this work in the future.
I would love to. He sent me. He asked me for a first chapter cold read, and I did it. And he was like, "Yep, that's kind of what I'm going for." So, it's humbling for me. I'm excited to do it. I would love to have my name on this. So, just let me know, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, appreciate you guys so much. Looks like we are a little over on time, but I think that she plans for that, which is why she had it set to end at 3:45. Thank you, Brandon. What do you need? Do I need to pay you for this, or are we capiche? We good?
We're good, man.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. I'm Joe W. You can tell because it says me right there under the here. Let's see, right there. It says me. That's how you know. And that's TJ. He's not sure though, until he looks at his ID. Thank
Yeah.
you. Have a beautiful day. Bye. The old hearts.